everyone, in this video we're going to talk about renting and a bunch of stuff to look out for, some common things that you might know and you might not know, things to ask, a bit about our experience, but this is also going to be the area that we're going to talk about is the beach towns. Okay, so when you start, I'll show you some maps here. So like Hacienda Pinilla, Playa Grande, Tamarindo, Brasilito, Reserva Conchal, Surfside, Potrero, Las Catalinas, all along kind of that area, because that's where we live and that's what we're familiar with. So, why don't we first just tell a bit? Why don't you tell them how when we did our rental and kind of what we did to get here?
So we had 6 months out, which I would highly recommend. Start your planning early. It's really important because it's hard to find places. We were told in advance that finding a long-term rental would be difficult, and they don't have a centralized sort of rental MLS where you can find all these rental places. So what we did is we started just Googling and asking people where to look. And we found a place that was close to land that we bought. So we got a little bit lucky there because the plan was for us to rent and then supervise or build while we were renting. And so we found a cute little house. Our criteria was really specific. We wanted 3 bedrooms. We wanted to have a pool because we were coming down with 2 kids, age 3 and 5. It had to have a washer and dryer. We really wanted an open space because we were working from home, and 3 bathrooms, and just somewhere close to the school.
So kind of how it works is a lot of trying to find long-term rentals, especially in the beach towns, is difficult because a lot of them will go short-term rentals for vacationers. So particularly around Christmas, New Year's, Easter, those are kind of the peak high season. So what'll happen is a lot of people from San Jose and in the city will all head out for the holidays. They've got a week or 2 off and they'll rent the house or they'll rent a condo or whatever. And the rates are awesome. If you're a landlord, they're, like $1,000 a night, let's say, what maybe they might be getting normally $4,000 a month. So sometimes when you're trying to find those long-term rentals, you'll get places where, okay, you can rent here, except you need to move out for this week. You need to move out for 2 or 3 weeks of Christmas and the Easter week, 1 or 2. In some places, that's kind of the deal you make because the landlord really wants to, juice up what they're going to make for those couple weeks, and the rest of the time give you the lower monthly rate because obviously they can rent it out short term for a higher average night, but they're not going to get as many nights. So you got to keep that in mind. The other thing is we've seen a lot of people that are buying these investment properties that they're willing to rent out also want to come down for a few weeks, either their friends or family or themselves. So they're not necessarily willing to lock in for a 12-month lease or a contract with someone long-term because then they won't be able to come down and use it, right? And the other thing is the prices of real estate now and what they can charge doesn't necessarily make it advantageous to rent it out long-term. People like that combination of, okay, get some good money, maybe cover the costs, make a little bit, but then that's also my vacation property I can go to, bring the family, friends, whatnot down. So let's talk about prices.
I say budget around $2,000 to $5,000 a month. I think that's reasonable. Of course, it depends on your priorities. If you want to go lower, like we always say, you get what you pay for. So if you want to try to rent for $700 a month, you probably won't have security, you probably won't have a washer and dryer, and you probably won't get more than 2 bedrooms for that price. And so it's really a trade-off what you're willing to prioritize. And so to be realistic, I would say $4,000 a month is the average around here.
But that's also gone up a lot. Like over, the last 2 years, ever since COVID came, you would have rented maybe a decent sized house, 4-bedroom house for $3,000, and now I think you'd be looking at 5 to 6. If you want a house with a pool, that's what you're talking. In like a gated community or a nicer area that it's a little more secure. If you're looking for a 2-bedroom condo, that type of thing, now I still think you're probably at $2,500. That would be on the low end. So what you're going to get usually is most of them will all be furnished. Okay, so fully furnished. It is like including kitchen utensils, small little appliances,
Linens.
Yeah. all that stuff is gonna be included. So basically, you could show up with your clothing in a couple suitcases and move in, and you're good to go, right? But you also got to expect that you're going to pay that rent, but you're also going to pay the electricity. Now, if you're only coming short term, if you're going on Airbnb and you're renting something for a few weeks, then no, you're not going to pay the electricity. But if you're going to stay on a monthly basis, most landlords are going to make you pay for the electricity because electricity can be expensive. And if you're an AC hog, then it's going to, add up.
Right.
So that's kind of what you're going to get. You're going to get, you have to pay a security deposit. Usually it's 1 month. You pay the first month's up front. And then you might have to give a deposit for the electricity because the bills usually take like a month to come through.
Yep.
So you pay all that up front. So you got to make sure you've got the cash flow for, basically 2 months and then some for the electricity just to begin. Now, a lot of landlords, like if they're North American landlords, they'll have usually U.S. bank accounts, Canadian bank accounts, that type of thing. Expect to pay by wire. No one's expecting you to show up with a bunch of cash to pay it. It's usually, wires and transfers. And some of them will have them sent back to those accounts. As far as, where to look, where would you start with?
I would start with your priorities. Like, do you want to live on the beach? Do you want to live by a golf course? Do you want to live near the schools? It's really, location has to be about your biggest priority. And for us, we wanted to live closest to the school. That was the easiest. So we kind of fanned out from the school to find out where we want to live. We really like Brasilito, Conchal area because it is close to the school and close to a lot of restaurants. It's easy to get to places. The rents were reasonable when we came down. Of course, that's gone up quite a bit. But there's other people who are very happy living in Tamarindo and Hacienda, for example, another golf course. So it really depends on what you're looking for.
So some things to watch out for when you first come, and some of the questions, because you got to ask about the deposits, ask about the air conditioning, then you got to ask things like fumigation. So that's another thing. Like we're on a monthly fumigation schedule. So like if you don't, more critters tend to show up, and especially different times of the year, it can get kind of grody. So make sure you got fumigation. If you have a pool, who's paying for the pool guy and the pool maintenance, right? The yard work, is that going to be done on a regular basis? Like the first house we had, there was a yard guy, but the yard guy, so funny story, quick story here. When they designed it, they did gutters on the inside, and the gutters were clogged up during the dry season. All the leaves came, and it was the first year that the house was built. So when the water all came and the gardener wasn't cleaning out the gutters correctly, it all flooded into 2 rooms. And we'll show a video. It sucked.
And the roof came down.
Yeah, the roof came down in one room.
Almost on Rob.
On the backyard. I think I still have the video somewhere. And then another room was flooded. So, like you got that. And then it's just, understanding, is there a property manager? So some places the owner will use a property manager. And the property managers usually are pretty good if they're, worth their weight in salt. Then dealing with them, if you need something fixed, it, tends to happen a little quicker than, some absentee investor who isn't around, and he's got to try to call someone to come fix your screen door, right? That kind of thing. What else is important? So some other things that you want to think about is when you're going to come. Obviously August, when the schools all start, that's when a lot of people tend to come. But we took the approach, we came early, we want to get settled, we came a few months before. And the other thing is you might be able to finesse yourself into a long-term lease by coming early to a place where they're not necessarily going to get full rent because it's the off season, and then you can kind of carry that through to the busy season, and they'll maybe carry you through. Some places actually, we had one friend, and she was actually allowed to sub-rent it out. So she rented the place for the full year, and then at Christmas she'd kind of move out and sub-rent it. And
Make some money.
Yeah. Pet deposits, you've got to do that as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's you get what you pay for. If you want to live closer to the beach and you want to live in a bigger house, you're going to have to pay more. If you want to live further away, maybe in a condo or maybe in somewhere that's not a gated community or a little harder to get to. That's the other thing. Like, what are the roads like? Some of these places are up on a mountain. They're beautiful views, but to try to get there, you need a 4x4 for sure. Or like if it's rainy season, then the road starts getting washed out and you can't get there. So just some questions to start to ask and understand, especially if you're trying to do everything remotely and line it up. Now, we know a lot of people, and what they'll do is they'll actually just come down first, get an Airbnb for maybe a month or two, kind of get the lay of the land, explore a few places, and then branch out from there. Also, if you get somebody on Airbnb, don't think that those numbers that they post are gospel. You can try to negotiate them, right? Hey, I want to stay for a month. Would you cut me a break? Give me a better deal. There's other ways to do it. Anything else that you think we should mention?
I was just going to mention that make sure you talk to the landlord if you can about their intentions. It's really, really important what their intentions are. We've had friends who have signed a 1-year lease, paid in advance the entire year, and then after a month, the landlord decided, you know what, someone made me an offer and I'm going to sell this place. So if the landlord is not there, try and find out what their intention are. Is this a long-term investment? Are they coming down? Are they planning on moving here? Do they live around here? Those are all questions that you should be asking the landlord or the property manager, because a lot of things are for sale, and you could get kicked out at a month's notice. And the rules and laws here are difficult to navigate, and so you don't really have a lot of rights when it comes to renting.
And the flip side is too, from a landlord's point of view, like people can just show up here and leave in a moment's notice. Like, hey, I know I signed a year lease, but I gotta go. It's emergency in the States, Canada, wherever. I'm out. We're not coming back, and leave that weekend. We've seen it happen. And like, what are they gonna do? Sue you in the United States? Like, it's just not gonna happen. So everybody's got to kind of protect themselves. So just be cognizant of that. But it's worth asking those questions. Some people have multiple properties and they're like, no, this is just totally an investment. I have no intention to come here. I have no problem you staying long term. Great, I'll even sell it to you maybe, right? So, just try to get as much information as you can ahead of time. Ask these questions. Understand what furnished is too, because that's the thing. Some of them might not have a full-size fridge, or the burners are different, or their idea furnished and unfurnished. But generally, you'll find in this area anyhow, everything is pretty much furnished. Not many people actually bring their own stuff. It's really like small appliances, some toys, clothing.
Computers.
That's what you're showing up with, right? So hopefully that helps. Like most things, you get what you pay for, take your time, but especially right now, long-term rentals are difficult to find. In the more popular areas, what we've seen, doesn't matter what your price point, if you're 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, like you just can't find long-term. It is difficult. So you got to get on those Facebook groups and, ask people. And just straight up, like, we have a community WhatsApp group, and people are posting on there. Oh, I have a friend looking to come down. So if you know someone, just start that chain of, hey, who do you know? Who can, what have you heard? That kind of thing, right? Because sometimes that's the only way to get it. So hopefully these tips help.
Make sure to like the video. We'll post some links, I guess, for some rentals in the comments. So take a look at that. Talk soon.